Everybody, and welcome to the Greater Stockton Chamber of Commerce's Fresh Wellness Committee meeting for April 15th. My name is Nancy Antonio, and I am the chair of the Fresh Committee. And I want to just start by doing some housekeeping items and let you know to sign in using the chat box. So please put in your name, organization, and any contact information in the chat box. Also, during the meeting, if you have any questions for the presenters or any of the panel members, please put those questions in the chat box. And then while our presenters are speaking, please mute your microphones so there are no distractions. So our first speaker of the day is going to be Paul Vosti, who is the work health promotion coordinator at Dignity Health St. Joseph's Medical Center. He's going to be talking about home office ergonomics and also some tips on how to manage stress as part of National Stress Awareness Month. So welcome, Paul.
Hi, everybody. Going to share my screen here. Oh, I need to, yeah, thanks, Frank. I work in the physical therapy department at St. Joseph's. I work in a specific part of physical therapy. We deal strictly with work injuries. So we try to get people better from work injuries. My main job is to keep people from getting hurt in the first place, and that's where ergonomics comes in. Sorry about my voice this morning. It's not COVID, it's seasonal allergies, actually. So this is my home ergonomics presentation. I put in parentheses the stress awareness version because it is Stress Awareness Month, national or state, I'm not sure, but it's stress aware. So I've got a few slides in there about helping yourself with reducing stress, which is a little bit of a higher level because of the COVID-19 virus. But we see some light at the end of the tunnel, so that's good. So what is ergonomics? So basically it's pretty simple. Ergo in Greek means work. And basically when you add onomics on something, it's basically the study of the work. And what we try to do in ergonomics is look at a job and try to change the job around so it puts the least physical strain on the worker's body. So logically, if there's less strain on the person's body throughout the day, then their risk for injury is going to be a lot lower. So ergonomics is actually pretty simple, and that's why I tell everybody I can be an expert at it, because it's pretty simple concept. So what we're trying to do in ergonomics is reduce injury to our workers and also improve their productivity, because those same principles of ergonomics are going to help you be more productive. And it gets a little complicated when you're working at home, though, because you might find yourself in varying positions that don't put less strain on your body. So for example, in this picture here, I don't know how she's working like that, but I would only last a couple minutes because my neck would start hurting really bad. So it's an example of some of the postures that people work in at home. So there's a lot of challenges. For me, it's like the cat here. She's always sitting in my lap, and she gets really hot and she's like burning up my legs and I'm trying to do work. But there's some unique challenges when you're working at home. One is there's nobody else around, and it seems like the house is all silent and there's nobody around to interact with. And a lot of people I know get more productive when they're interacting with their coworkers. It's hard to get, a lot of times there's a challenge in communicating with your boss or the people that are your team that you're working with at work. So it's a little harder to get things done. You have to balance what's going on at your house at the same time with trying to get your job done. So for me, it's taking care of my pet You can see the stroller there in the background. A couple of days I was watching my grandson at the same time I was trying to work at the same time, which, by the way, doesn't work. So you sort of have to balance your home life with your work life at the same time. And we'll have some tips on how to get around that. Just the physical environment. So I don't have my fancy office chair, computer set up with the 2 monitors, my desk that adjusts in height. You know, I'm sitting on a couch and using like a TV tray as my desk. So the physical environment is a little different. And I talked about the computer workstation setup challenges as well. And then if you're working with other people living in your house at the same time, your schedule is going to be a little different as well too. So those are some of the main challenges that we're going to encounter at the home office. So once again, just getting back to the goal of ergonomics, we want to reduce the amount of risk we have for these common musculoskeletal disorders that happen as a result of working at a computer workstation. So you've probably all heard of carpal tunnel syndrome. So you have a small area in your wrist where all the tendons sort of slide in and out of there when you move your fingers around. And if you overuse those, eventually it starts to wear down the nerve, and that's when it becomes carpal tunnel syndrome. Tendinitis is inflammation of the tendons, which basically attach your muscles to your bones. And one of the most common tendinitis is what we call epicondylitis or tennis elbow. That is the inflammation of the tendon right at the elbow. And we call it tennis elbow because tennis players get it a lot because they, if you do a top spin forehand, you're turning your hand over, you're pronating a lot. And that puts a lot of strain on the tendon right at your elbow. But when you're on a traditional keyboard, you're doing the same thing. You're turning your hands over all day long. So it does put a lot of strain on that elbow as well. And then most back and neck injuries are considered MSDs or musculoskeletal disorders. And MSDs are a little different from your accident type of injury or acute type of injury. They usually take a little longer to develop. And probably the most important thing is that they're multifactorial, which means it's not really one thing that causes them. So we're going to focus on those things that will help us reduce our risk for these types of injuries. One of the things that a goal of ergonomics is to improve productivity. And when we're trying to improve productivity and reduce our risk for injury, we want to take sort of a holistic approach, which for me means we want to focus on all those things that are going to contribute to putting ourselves at risk for injury or low productivity. So I like to call it being multifactorial, you know. So if we just focus on one thing, like how our computer's set up while we're at home, it's not going to make as big a difference as we're focus on all those factors that may reduce our risk for injury or improve our effectiveness when we're working at home. Does that make sense to everybody? Have any questions so far? So what it boils down to is every day you're going to put stress on your body, you're going to do damage to it physically, and every day we need to be able to recover from it. And when we're not recovering from it, that's when the tissues in our body or musculoskeletal system starts to break down and we're going to get hurt. So logically, if we want to reduce our risk for injury, we want to look at our workstations at home or at work and our jobs and rearrange it so we don't put as much strain on your body, so we limit the amount of damage that we put on our body throughout the day. But if we just did that, and that's where ergonomics come in, we are only looking at one side of the equation, right? We also want to look at those things that affect our body's ability to recover on a daily basis. So and that's what we're going to do first. We're going to look at things that might affect our body's ability to recover on a daily basis. So, so these are the things that are going to affect our body's ability to recover on a daily basis. So you're just overall general health is a factor. So they've shown in studies that people with chronic conditions like hypertension, diabetes, people that smoke, people with chronic heart problems, people with chronic stomach problems like acid reflux, people that are overweight. People in these categories tend to have a lot more of these types of injuries and also be less productive at work. And sort of the way I look at it is you only have so much energy in a day, right? So you're at a set metabolism. So if a lot of this energy is going to this energy is going to fight off the other problems in your body, then you have less calories or energy to repair what you've done to your musculoskeletal system on a daily basis. So we probably all had the flu before. Hopefully it wasn't COVID-19, but what are the symptoms of COVID-19? What are some of them? You know, we have a fever, can't smell anymore or taste anything. And then also a common flu and COVID-19 symptom is body aches, right? You know, your body aches. And maybe it's because your body's using all its resources to fend off this deadly virus. It doesn't have the resources to repair what you've done to your musculoskeletal system on a daily basis. That's just sort of the way I look at it. So if you manage your health better, your risk for injury and your productivity could be better at work. Does that sort of make sense to everybody? So, so I'm not saying you need to become super healthy, but sort of manage it better. So do you know if you have high blood pressure? And if you do have high blood pressure, did you let your prescription run out and you haven't been taking them for the last 2 months? Do you know what your blood sugar is? Do you know what your cholesterol level is, which is a risk factor for heart disease? So the important thing is that you're more proactive about your health. There's a lot of people I know that don't go to the doctor. And that's important to do because you find out these things that can keep you from acquiring these chronic conditions that can affect your body's ability to recover. The second thing is you need to eat right. You know, if you don't have the proper vitamins, minerals, nutrients you need to repair tissue on a daily basis, then your risk for injury could be higher, right? So what's an important mineral for strong bones and muscles, if anybody wants to chime in? That's softball there.
Vitamin D.
Vitamin D and
Calcium.
calcium, right? So if you're lacking in a critical nutrient like calcium, that's important because it might affect your body's ability to repair your bones and muscles throughout the day. So you want to eat, I call it eating more productively. You know, before I put it in my mouth, how is this going to benefit me nutritionally? So like ice cream and M&Ms, they taste really good and they have lots of calories, but doesn't really have a lot of nutritive value to it, right? But you know, if I'm having whole grains, beans, fruits and vegetables, those are a lot more productive and they're going to affect my body in a positive way because they're going to have a better nutritive value. So what is it Dr. Van Ness says all the time? He's a professor at UOP in the health, exercise, and sports science. He says fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans. Yeah, so he makes his students say fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans. So if you can keep that in mind and eat more of those and less of things that taste really good and slide down, then your body's going to be healthier and your body's ability to recover is going to be a lot better. By the way, there has been a lot of research connecting vitamin D to your risk for COVID-19 and also being able to recover from that. So that's another critical nutrient that is in the news recently because of COVID-19. And then also people that stress out a lot and people that are inactive tend to have a lot more injuries, but particularly these musculoskeletal injuries. So I'm going to talk about those a little more specifically. So there's a couple studies that I like to talk about when I talk about stress and its relation to getting hurt. So they did this study at Boeing, and Boeing makes airframes, right? So they have tens of thousands of workers, and what they did was interview all their workers who had back injuries. And what they found out from the interviews was that 80% of those workers who had back injuries were also unhappy with their job. And that sort of points out the mental link between your mental well-being and injury. But my favorite study is the one where they took these machines. They're called electromyographs, and they measure muscle tension, basically. So they hook these electrodes that measure muscle activity to a bunch of people, and they separated them into two groups. So in the one group, they had them think very positive thoughts, wedding days, graduation days, kids being born, maybe the Raiders making the playoffs this year, like happy thoughts like that. And then they had the other group think very negative thoughts. So divorces, deaths in the family, daughters with deadbeat boyfriends, having to be a Raider fan over the last 10 or 15 years, negative thoughts. So what they found in the study is that people in the group that thought happy thoughts had a lot less muscle tension going on. So that's a really strong link between your mental outlook and direct strain on your musculoskeletal system. So that's an important study. So when you react to stress negatively, it's not a mental thing, right? It's an actual physical response. So your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, your muscles tense up, and you release all this adrenaline into your body. And essentially you're getting ready for anybody know what it's called? Anybody want to chime in?
Fight or flight.
Exactly. So the fight or flight response. So this is something that we evolved with as humans, but we evolved with this, when we had to gather food a little differently, right? So we used to have to run after animals, to get our food, right? Chase after them when you have to get all pumped up to go run after them, right? Or we had to run away from saber-toothed tigers or whatever, we had to run away from things as well. So nowadays we get our food a little differently, right? We, get in a car, drive, talk into a speaker, and then our foods, then we pick up our food and then we eat it. So there's not a lot of stress going on there. Or nowadays you can just sit at home and order it on your computer and it's there in like 20 minutes. So it's a little different. So what happens is we've got this physiological response when we're at work, but there's no release for it, right? Because you can't go around just beating up your coworkers, right? Or your family if you're working at home, right? And you just can't take off running away from your job, right? So that continual physiological buildup with nowhere to go, it wears your body down over a period of time. And as a result of that, your risk for injury could be higher because, you feel it, right? When you get home, your neck and your shoulders seem like they're really tight all the time. So stress can do physical damage to you. So I just have a couple pieces of advice, and this is just my personal advice based on my experience. So the first thing is you need to exercise because exercise is very important physiologically for helping you deal with that stress physiological buildup. So that's the first thing. You tend to deal with that physiological buildup better if you're in better shape. Secondly, exercise can be an outlet for your stressful response, right? It's a release, right? And then thirdly, depending on what type of exercise you're doing, it can be meditative, which is good for managing stress, right? So, they talk about the runner's high sometimes. So, when you're running along and you're sort of disconnecting a little bit, and that's meditative, you're in that beta wave zone. That's also good for managing stress because it's meditative. And then there's specific exercises that are good for meditation, like Tai Chi and yoga as well. So exercise is important if you have a lot of stress and anxiety. But the question I always get, well, I'm too stressed, I'm too anxious to go exercise, Paul. So there's just a couple tips. So first, with exercise, a lot of people think of stressing and working really hard in a gym and pumping weights and stuff like that, and they just associate exercise with being hard. And if they don't get their hour of their full workout in, they feel like they failed at exercise for the day. So you need to adopt the mindset that just a little bit is better than zero, right? So if you're able to just get up and walk for 15 minutes, that's better than nothing, right? So you don't want to go with the all or nothing thing with exercise, or else you're going to be feeling like you're failing at doing it all the time. So, and that can help you, especially when you're just sort of stressed out and anxious, because I'm anxious, I'm not going to be able to fit this in today because I have to go home, get dressed, get to the gym. But if I go to the gym for too long, then I won't be able to get back and make dinner for the kids or whatever. If you can just get a little bit in, it's better than zero. And then the other thing I tell people is just schedule a little bit every day just to get something in. If it's 10, 15 minutes, look at a gap that you're in your calendar through that day. Even if it's just 5 minutes, do it. So if you can get in a little bit every day, you get in the habit of doing it, and that's what we want. You want to make it a habit so if you miss a day, you feel like something's missing throughout your day. So if you're depressed and you have anxiety, these are my two pieces of advice for you, is that you don't have to win at exercise. You just have to be more physically active. And these are a couple of ways that you have to do it. Two is you need to plan for change. And what I mean by that is things change at work. And obviously we had some big change going on because we had a pandemic going on. And what I tell people is that the faster that you adapt to that change, the less stressed that you're going to be. So all of a sudden you're working at home. The faster you get everything arranged to where you're working comfortably at home and you're productive, the less stressed out you're going to be, right? So especially here in healthcare, where we always have some new procedure, some new piece of equipment that we need to learn. And the faster you master it, the less stressed you're going to be. So if you notice, people that are really good at their jobs, they never seem like they're stressed out at all because they're always ready, right? You know, if something comes along, they're ready for it because they're prepared, right? If you wait until the night before to study, you're always going to be a lot more stressed out, right? So, you know, thrown into that home environment, it's like, you know, I just need to figure out how to make this work as soon as possible so that I can be more productive when I'm working. So you want to make sure you're prepared for your job and plan for any change that's going to happen. The third thing is probably all heard of the sincerity prayer. So, and what I mean by that is you just need to know that there's things that no matter how much you try, they're not going to change, right? So, for example, in a hospital, there might be 10, 15, 20, 25 people involved with the care of one single patient. Now, if you're one of those nurses or physical therapists that are worried a lot about what else is going on or what other people are doing, you're going to be stressed out all day long because you can't control all other people. And if you're worrying about that a lot, you're going to be stressed out all day long. So you want to accept those things that you can't change and just sort of move on from there. So I give the example of if you're driving and you're like late for something and then the light turns yellow and the car in front of you stops and you get all mad and stuff because you could have made it, right? So no matter how much you're screaming and yelling inside your car, the light is not going to turn green faster, right? In fact, it seems like it takes longer, right? So you want to make sure that you just accept it. It's not going to change and sort of move on with what you can do. So, so that's what sincerity prayer means. And then the last piece of advice that I give for stress is they have a good program. It's what they call heart math. And it's a program, and I can't remember the name of the organization, but they offer it to employees, but they have a couple tools that I like. So a lot of times there's certain situations where you can't do some of the things that you do to manage stress. Like you can't immediately go exercise because you're dealing with sort of an acute situation there, right? So one of the tools that they've given us is, you know, just breathing. So the tool is, you know, you take a deep breath in, and then you sort of purse your lips like you're whistling, and then exhale really slow. And then while you're exercising really slow, you go to your happy place, you know, right? So you want to think of something, an event or a location that's pleasant to you. And if you do that, it tends to bring your heart rate and your blood pressure down. So in this heart math presentation, they actually had someone up on stage and had a blood pressure cuff hooked up to him and a EKG hooked up to him. And they had him sort of make him nervous while they were up there in front of everybody. And then they said, you know, do this tool, inhale, exhale really slow, and then think of something pleasant. You could see her heart rate and blood pressure go down after she did that. So it actually works. So if you're in a sort of an acute situation, like right before you're giving a presentation or something like that, then, you know, if you take a deep breath in, exhale really slow and think of something pleasant, or go to your happy place. For some reason, I always think of that movie Happy Gilmore, where Happy Gilmore has to go to is a happy place, and it's a really weird sort of visual, but everybody has their own sort of happy place, and if you go to that, that sort of helps get your heart rate and blood pressure down and deal with that acute stress situation. Is there any specific questions with regard to stress that I can do my best to answer, even though this is not my expertise? All right, we'll get back to ergonomics. Can take a drink here first. But before we do that, I'm going to talk about exercise a little bit. And exercise is very important, especially for your body's ability to recover on a daily basis. So I already talked about how it helps you dealing with stress, but also probably the most important thing is it promotes circulation to all parts of your body. And when you have better circulation, you repair tissue a lot better. So, so you might have been to physical therapy before, but what we do in physical therapy is we have these modalities. So might have heard of like ultrasound or electrostimulation. We do massage, we put heat on you and ice on you. And so one of the goals of all those modalities is we want to increase circulation sort of to the injured site so that it heals faster. So when your fitness is better, you produce more circulation naturally, so you're going to heal a lot better. And even when recovering from chronic problems like cancer, they're finding that this circulation value from exercise is very important. It can actually help stifle tumor growth and things like that. So they're starting to use exercise as an adjunct to some of the other chemotherapy and radiation that they're using, because it helps increase the effectiveness of those. So exercise is important to increase circulation. Obviously, it helps increase bone and muscle strength, which are the things we're trying to keep from getting hurt. And then also all those chronic conditions that I listed in the first slide, they're affected positively through exercise. So, you know, your resting blood pressure comes down, your risk for heart disease goes down, you tend to manage blood sugar better, which reduces your risk for diabetes. Or if you have diabetes, you're going to be able to manage it better. So, so basically what I'm saying is exercise is as close to the magic health pill as you can get. I like to talk about it because that's where my expertise are. I have a graduate degree in exercise physiology. I wish I would have been a biochemist and invented the exercise pill, though, because then I could be flying around in my own jet and give these types of presentations, right? Because most people would rather just take a pill. But you don't really need that much, though, you know, so you just need to be a little more physically active than you are. So for the average person, if you can do 30 minutes, 3 to 5 days a week, and not all out, but at a sort of a 3/4 speed, that's enough to improve your cardiovascular fitness, and you're going to get a lot of benefits from the exercise, which is, like I said, one of the best medicines you can do. So an hour and a half a week, so the average American spends more than an hour and a half a day watching television. And that doesn't include other screen time either. So you need to exercise. Okay, so now back to ergonomics. So when we talk about ergonomics, there are certain things that are going to put more strain on your body when you're on the job. So, and these are the main ones. So we call them repetitive exertions, forceful exertions, contact stress, and poor posture. So the position you are when you're working at the computer. So if you are typing 30 words a minute, which is slow, that is about 10,000 exertions an hour. So so to cut down on the amount of repetitiveness on the job, we tell people to move. So if you can change positions every 10 or 15 minutes, doesn't mean you need to go down the hall and get coffee. It just means move. So you might just shift around in your chair, stand up for a second, sit back in your chair and sort of lean back and do that. You just need to move to keep the circulation going, because if you don't move, you lose circulation, and then within 20 minutes of no circulation, the muscles can get tired. And in some people, when the muscles fatigue, they can spasm and inflame and cause you pain. So if you can, you know, micro break, as we call it, every 10 or 15 minutes, stretch for 30 seconds every hour, and then just make sure you take your breaks away from your desk, you're going to reduce those repetitive or sustained static exertions like sitting too long or standing too long, and it'll be less strain on your body. Forceful exertions in an office are more like pinching and gripping. So you want to try to reduce the amount of gripping and pinching, and that will help reduce your risk for those hand problems like carpal tunnel syndrome. So so what we recommend is make sure you're handling things that are heavier with two hands, so you're not squeezing as hard. You can use grip aids, you know, like rubber fingers or Sort Quick and things like that. We usually recommend the gel pens, so you're not, you know, squeezing hard and pushing down like were you doing when you use a ballpoint pen. That's what forceful exertions are. Contact stresses happen a lot at home when you're working like at a kitchen table, but soft tissue against a hard surface, that can wear down the tissue underneath. So that's why they have wrist rests, and that's why it's important to get your keyboard and the mouse in the right position, so you're not resting your wrist on a hard surface, which can damage the tissue underneath. And then finally, when most people talk about office ergonomics, they're focusing on the position they want to be in while they're at work, while they're working at the computer. So you think of ergonomic keyboards and special chairs that get you in the right position. So, so we're going to talk about getting you in the right position while you're at home in a second, because it's a little more of a challenge because you don't have the good equipment that you have while you're on your job in your office. So when you're sitting, the most important thing is you want to sit supported. So you get support two ways. When your feet are on the ground, it takes about 20% of the stress off of your lower back. So if you're adjusting the height of your chair, you want your hips about level with your knees with your feet on the ground comfortably. And then also you get support by leaning into the back of your chair. So when you lean into the back of your chair, it also takes pressure off your back. So if you lean forward right now away from the back of your chair, you'll notice that everything from your waist up, the muscles are going to be working a lot harder. And then finally, when you do sit in the back of your chair, you want to sit at a little bit of an angle. So, so the more you lean forward, the more pressure you put on your lumbar discs, which has been shown in studies. So the proper angle is not at 90 degrees, but more like 100, 110 degrees. So most chairs, you can adjust the angle of the chair so that you're leaning back slightly, and that will put the least strain on your back while you're sitting. You want your keyboard and the mouse to be just about elbow height when you're working. So the way that most people can adjust their keyboard height is by raising your chair up and down. So if you have to raise your chair up to get to the right keyboard height and your feet are dangling, that's where you need a footrest so you can support your back with your lower extremity. Remember, it takes about 20% of the stress off of your lower back. And then the monitor, you want to line up yourself with the space bar on your keyboard, because that's usually the middle. So belly button with the space bar, and then you want to line up the middle of the monitor with the space bar on the keyboard. And then you want to line up the top of the viewing screen right about eye level. So your eyes don't see the easiest at eye level. They actually see better about 10 to 15 degrees below eye level. So if you line up your eyes at the top of the screen, your eyes should feel the most relaxed in the middle of the screen. And it sort of makes sense, because when you read a book, usually it's below eye level. You don't raise it up above your head to read a book, right? So something you're staring at all day long, if it's too high for you, your eyes will get tired. And when your eyes get tired, you start lifting your chin up, or you start leaning forward, and then you're not sitting into the back of your chair more. And then the distance should be about an arm's length, plus or minus a couple inches. That's going to depend on a number of factors, which includes your own personal vision, how big your screen is, how big you put the characters on the screen, the color temperature on the screen, the contrast on the screen. So there's a bunch of factors. What I tell people is put your screen depth at the guideline. And then if you feel like at the end of the day you're leaning forward, you probably need to bring your monitor a little bit closer. So, so posture is vision driven, right? Wherever your head goes, the rest of your body tends to follow. So, and it's important, especially when you're working at home, because you don't want to place your monitor next to your window where all the sun's coming in and you're putting a lot of glare on your screen, right? So you want your main lighting to always come at a right angle to the screen, because if it comes from behind you, it's going to put glare on the screen. And then if the light source is in front of you, it's going to come directly in your face, and that's going to also cause some eye strain as well. So before I talk about getting your workstation in the right position while you're working at home, I have a few tips that will help you be more effective while you're working at home. So first is you want to prepare like you're going to the office, right? So when I was working at home more often, I would get up at the same time, take a shower, get everything ready, dress like I was going to work. And if you keep that same routine, you'll be more prepared to work effectively. But if you just sort of wake up, have your coffee, and then you're still in your pajamas, and then you try to do work while your laptop's on the kitchen table, you're probably not going to be as effective because you're not geared up for work. Also, in talking about that, you want to dedicate a specific work area, right? So if you're moving your laptop all the way around your house, you're probably not going to be as effective. So find a spot that you can be effective at, and not places where you feel like it's going to affect your productivity. So you don't want it directly next to your TV, right? Because you might be tempted to turn the TV on and try to watch TV and binge Netflix as you're trying to get work done at the same time. That's going to affect your productivity. You want to select the right medium for communication. What does that mean? If you're using video, that's a lot better, more effective for a connection than just a phone call. But also making sure where your camera is, and making sure that your background is good, so you don't have your kids running around in the background or TV going in the background. And that's what we mean by setting the right medium. You want to remember, we talked about sort of being isolated when you're working at home. So you want to make time to get those Zoom calls in and things like that, to make sure that you're connecting with other people on your team or the people that you're working with. And that's going to help you stay connected and be more effective on your job. You want to work when you're most productive. So for me, it's the morning. I tend to get most of my stuff done in the morning and leave things that when I'm not as precise for the morning or in the evening. And then also, if you have a calendar, you want to block off specific time to make sure you got done. So before you start work, you want to make sure you are getting these things done and make sure you block time off on your calendar when your kids are away to make sure you can get those specific tasks done. We already talked about the micro breaks. You know, you want to kind of keep your iPad and stuff like that away from you or your home media away from you so you're not distracting yourself. We sort of talked about the TV. Remember to leave the office. So a lot of people leave their laptop set up and then they're going back to working on it. That can lead to more stress because you'll feel like you're working all the time. And when you have questions, you want to make sure that you call somebody and talk to somebody if you're trying to accomplish a specific task on your job. And then the main things for me when you're setting up your home computer is that you want to separate your keyboard from your laptop screen. So if you're able to do that, then you'll be able to raise your monitor to the right height. So you can use something like this laptop stand here, or like I was doing before the laptop stand, I was making sure that I just stacked it up on a few Harry Potter books, which are pretty thick, so I could get my screen at the right height. So if you're able to separate your keyboard from the laptop screen, you'll be able to get in some sort of a better position. You want to sit supported, and so this is when I first started. So I actually was sitting on the couch, but I had two pillows there, and I'm sitting on my blanket so I can get to the right height for this. Eventually, I just bought a kind of a really cheap office chair that went up and down so that I could adjust my height. So, so I'm going to show you a couple of things on Amazon that are pretty cost effective that can get your home office sort of in a better position. And then this is a good low cost work surface here. It's sort of like a TV chair sort of work surface, but you can also adjust the height of it. So you can adjust it to the right height so you can get your position at the right height. So I have a couple of sort of cheap sort of Amazon things that you can do. So this is the chair that I bought, which is fairly inexpensive. They have ones that are cheaper, but you just want to make sure that it has a height adjustment so that you can adjust your chair height so you can get your keyboard and your mouse and your desk surface at the right height. Once again, if you have to raise your chair to get to the right height, and for me, like kitchen tables, my kitchen table chairs, my feet don't hit the ground, so you can get a footrest to get to the right height. This is my wireless keyboard and the mouse, which is, you know, $21, and that makes it easier for me to adjust my screen to the right height. So once again, it's sort of a low cost item. If I'm prioritizing, this is what I get first, especially if you're working from a laptop.
Paul, it's
Yes.
not showing the items that you're referring to on the screen. It's still showing your PowerPoint presentation.
I'm sorry.
Not
Here
a
we go.
problem.
Forgot to switch, sorry. See it now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I'll go back to, this is, if you guys want the web links, you can just email me and I'll send them to you. But this was the chair. This was the footrest that I have. This is the wireless keyboard and the mouse. And this is my table that I use. So, so it's just a table. I can adjust it up and down, and that way it'll help me adjust to the right height for working at the home computer. So if you have any questions on that, or anything with regard to ergonomics, or you need an ergonomic evaluation, feel free to let me know. Are there any questions? Sorry I went a little long, but I blame it on Frank because he made me talk about stress too. So any
We could
questions?
just get your email. I don't have your email. Would it be possible to get that in the
Sure.
chat box, please?
Sure, I can put that in there.
Thank you.
Great information, Paul. I know a lot of us are still working in the office, still working at home, doing some type of a hybrid. And then we've got children, you know, that are also working from home, that we want to make sure that we instill the proper setup for them also, to get them on good habits of health. So does anybody have any follow-up questions for Paul before we go to our next speaker? Okay, then our next speaker is going to be Shellie Lima, who is from San Joaquin County Office of Emergency Services. She's going to provide the latest information on the COVID pandemic and how the chamber can support their efforts. So Shellie, welcome.
Hi, I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Good. All right. I don't have any PowerPoints or anything. Just real quickly, want to first say that we have so many open vaccine appointments right now that we can't fill them up. Today is the first day that we're allowing anyone from the age of 16 and up to be vaccinated. Pfizer is the vaccination that we'll need to use for 16 and 17-year-olds, since Moderna hasn't been accepted for anybody under the age of 18. Also, you've probably heard in the news that Johnson & Johnson has been placed on hold. In the meantime, the Kaiser downtown vaccination clinic that was using Johnson & Johnson has been supplied with a very good supply of Pfizer from our public health department. So they continue to do vaccines as well. So I encourage you and your families, if you have not been vaccinated yet, to reach out to www.sjready.org and make your appointments and get in and get those vaccinations to help us get our community reopened again. The variants, the COVID-19 variants, are here in our county. It's proven, we know that already. These variants affect our children worse or more so than the original vaccine did. So the only way that we as adults can take the best care of our children is to be sure that we get vaccinated, so that way we don't spread anything to them as well. And we also bring down our community's transmission rate. And in talking about that part, we, as you know, we just recently left the purple tier, yay, and we're working our way up that list. We are in red right now. Our current case rate is 9.9 cases per day per 100,000. Because we were able to increase our testing volume, the adjusted case rate is 9.6. That still keeps us firmly in the red category. Our testing positivity rate is 3.9%, which is actually in the orange tier. And our health equity rate, which is that group of folks that live in the lowest quartile areas, the areas that have a need for more, or they have less, lost all my train of thought. they have less access to public health and medical and things like that. So those are our lower economic areas, people that have little access to or have access and functional needs issues where they don't speak English as a first language, and they have other reasons where, like, maybe they don't have reliable transportation and things like that. So by increasing our vaccine rate and our testing rate in those areas, that helps to bring our levels down too. So that health equity positivity rate is also in the orange tier, which is 4.1. So 2 out of the 3 indexes that are required to be tracked are in orange. Only 1 is firmly in the red tier. So with that, we still need to continue to bring our positivity rate down. And the only way to do that, again, as Dr. Park has said over and over, is to get vaccinated. That is pretty much the entire message that I have to share with you today. I know today here at the Ag Center near the airport, we have almost 200 vacant appointments. The Manteca Sikh temple has almost 500 vacant appointments that are ready right now, basically to almost walk in for that vaccine. And there are some, we're also vaccinating at the Lodi Sikh temple and the Stockton Sikh temple. They have openings, and Delta College has a lot of openings right now as well. We were planning to vaccinate over 1,000 people at Delta College today. So hopefully that gets your mind going, gets your people out, get all of your employees vaccinated, and get everybody back to work. Anything else, any questions that you might have of me? I'm available to answer those if I can.
What are the hours of your clinics, your vaccine clinics?
Oh, they vary. It depends on where you are. The Lodi and Stockton clinics are actually running over the weekend. They'll be on Saturday from 10 to 6, I believe. The clinics today are running from 9 to 5, 9 to 6, depending on which clinic you're looking at. So they vary depending on the one, and they are listed on sjready.org under the vaccine tab. That'll probably give you the best information there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Frank.
just quickly, Shellie, thank you again for being part of our community and also the Chamber of Commerce, because you should become a member now because you've been here so on a regular basis. But what are you projecting? How much more time in the red?
Oh, that's the saddest question ever. Right now, in order to get to orange, we have to meet at least the orange criteria in all 3 sections for at least 3 full weeks. We're not there. No matter what, after coming up this next Tuesday, even if our case rate is in the orange category and everything is orange, it will be 3 weeks in that category before we move to orange. So assuming we can get our case rate down by Tuesday, then it's 3 more weeks. Dr. Park insinuated today that she doesn't think that we'll have our case rate that low as early as Tuesday. So we're looking at least a month. Now, we have heard the governor say that in June, I believe June 15th, they're going to do away with the tier system. So that tells us that maybe we won't have to worry about it after June, but it would be really nice to get into some of those lower tiers before we get there, because I think we really want to start doing things. Getting into a lower tier means our schools can have more people at graduation. Our sporting events can have more people going to those events. We can start to travel and to mingle and to have more activities. Our businesses can start to open a little bit more. We can bring more people inside restaurants where the air conditioning is, where it's cooler to eat, and we can have somebody else do our dishes for us after dinner. That's my dream.
That's why we have kids.
Also, Shellie, so
And they're all grown up.
you guys announced yesterday that 25% of the county population is vaccinated.
Yes.
So is that the 25% that's eligible? Because now that it's 16 and over, because there's the non-eligible, all the children. So does that account for only the eligible population, or is that based on the total population of the county?
You know, it's interesting you say that. I don't recall, the last number that I saw was actually 35% have been vaccinated if you take the children out of the mix. So they're looking at 25% of our entire population, including children that really can't be vaccinated. So they're
Okay.
looking at that whole big number because there's 780,000 in our county. So that's 25% of the overall population. But
Okay.
whenever they took the kids out, the 35% was eligible 18 and over at that time. Now that we don't have to concentrate on just ag workers or those type different categories, and it's everybody over the age of 16 starting today, we're hoping that those numbers will really start to grow of more people being vaccinated. In fact, I'm looking out my window right now and there's a very good line of people walking in to get their vaccines. So that's a good sign.
That's great. And I'm going to just put a plug in that San Joaquin RTD is offering free rides to anybody who has a vaccination appointment. So you can book your vaccine appointment, and then on the SJ Ready, you'll have the link to San Joaquin RTD. And you can also do a trip planner from where you are located to the clinic, and it'll help you, give you the bus route, the schedule, and all you have to do is show your confirmation of your vaccine appointment to the bus operator. And so your ride is free of charge. So I encourage you to let your employees, your family, your friends know about all the available resources.
And that's to and from, right, Nancy?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a big plus for those people that have trouble getting there. But we do have clinics that we tried to spread all over the county, trying to help get them to people that need them. We are looking into the future where we might be able to come to businesses that have 100 people or so that need to all be vaccinated at the same time. I know we did that with the ag industry. We're taking a clinic up to the community of Thornton next week. We're working with some other churches right now to get some more community vaccination services out. So that way we can get more of the population taken care of in their own areas.
You came to our company as well.
Yeah.
We vaccinated 240 people just
Right on.
2 weeks ago.
Good. So see,
Thank you.
and we're considered fully vaccinated if we've had both doses. There's different time periods between Pfizer and Moderna. One is 28 days, one is 21 days. If you were able to get Johnson & Johnson, that was a one-time shot. We don't know when that pause is going to be ended, probably not for another week, if then, depending on how much information they're able to gather. So right now, it looks like we're going to be doing 2 doses per person. So just bank on that, plan to get it. The side effects are nowhere near as bad as the side effects from developing one of those COVID after effects. I know I have a nephew that is experiencing heart problems as a result of getting COVID last year. And he was a straight A student, 4.2, and he hasn't been able to do any schoolwork, and he's got brain fog, and things are just not going well. So hoping that we can get more people vaccinated so they don't have to go through that.
Okay, well, thank you, Shellie, for all the hard work that you and your group are doing to manage the COVID pandemic with all the great information. So does anybody have any announcements about upcoming events that they're got for health and wellness? We'd love to hear about what you're doing in your workplace and how you're supporting the health and wellness of your employees.
Well, we have Tesla on the line. I don't know, have you done a mass vaccination down there, Mary Jo?
We've actually done many mass vaccinations. We've only had one in Lathrop, but have 2 more that are scheduled. We have done I think 4 events in the Bay Area and 2 events in Gigafactory, Nevada, and 2 in Texas. So we are trying our best to make opportunities available for our employees. And the nice part is we've been able to open up the ages to which those are available at this point, because when we first started, it was only certain criteria. So it's much easier now that those ages keep moving down.
Mhm. And I have to say, Amazon is also going to be working with the county to help provide vaccines. They'll be working as volunteers at our vaccine sites. So we're really excited about that group too. That's going to be helping us. We need the help.
When do you anticipate it going down to 13-year-olds again vaccinated, or do you think that's going to come?
It could in the future. Right now, both Moderna and Pfizer are undergoing testing to try to lower that. I know there's been talk that they're working on testing those age groups. It's going to be a while before the government approves that. They still have to do the studies and make sure that it's safe for them. So that's kind of where we're at on that. Whenever they are eligible, we will be putting vaccine out for them too, though.
Outstanding. Yeah, because I know some of the schools are going back to quarantine. Some classes, heard up in Lodi, they've had several cases up there. So I didn't know, what impact that would have.
Yeah, and continue to get tested too. That testing is going to help us reach the tier because it'll help us to adjust our case rate even more. I didn't know if you noticed, but our case rate was adjusted from 9.9 down to 9.6 because of our testing. So that is helping a little bit, but we still need to continue to be tested because sometimes we don't know that we have it.
Right.
So what would your suggestion be, Shellie, after you've been vaccinated to start like a periodic preventative testing?
The Dr. Park is recommending every few weeks that we continue to get ourselves tested, even though we've been vaccinated, because that the vaccination has an 80 to 90% efficacy. Johnson & Johnson, I believe, is only 70%. So there's still a slight chance. And it's not 100% proven that it won't protect you from some of the variants as well or as strongly, but our chances of kicking it are better getting the vaccine. So she does recommend periodically, and she didn't really say how often that is, but I've heard every couple of weeks is good.
All right, great. All right, anybody else have any announcements that they would like to make or any comments?
Just wanted to offer Tesla again, as you're doing county vaccinations, if there's any partnership that we can do. We have offered before and haven't heard anything. So, don't hesitate to reach out if there's something we can do, or if there's a partnership for a vaccination clinic or things like that.
Great. If you want to go on sjready.org and click on the contact us link or the leave a note, we have the Go app. You can enter the information for contacting, and I can have my operations section reach out to you and see what you guys can do to help us. I know we had a clinic out at the community center in Lathrop last weekend. Leprino Foods helped us with that one. But we're always looking for more places to host some of these events. So we'd really be happy to work with you guys.
Okay.
Okay, then if anybody doesn't have any other announcements, I'm going to just put one other plug in for San Joaquin RTD. Upcoming on Thursday, April 22nd, it's Earth Day. And so RTD will be offering free rides to everybody on all routes. So again, we want to promote that to get people to use public transportation for a cleaner environment and help with our air quality. So that's all I have. Frank, do you have any closing words?
No, that's it. I'd like to thank Paul and Shellie for
Thank you.
Outstanding presentations.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And our next fresh meeting should probably be on, what day is that? May 13th,
May
Thursday, May 13th. So we will see you then. So thank you, everybody, and have a good day.
Thank you.